I did this reel that I posted about, nightmare transactions because I've had my share. There's been agents that have done so as well. And you commented on yours. And I'm like, you know what? I need to get Anna on here because this story, it seemed like a thriller, like an actual movie. So go ahead and share.
Thank you. My name is Anna Franklin. I'm a realtor here in San Diego, California. So, to start off, the property had expired off of the market after about 90 days. I took it over. It was an hour away from any civilization. So, it was through some windy mountain roads, down a mile long, hilly, rough dirt road. The pricing was challenging because there were no comps. Once we got it photographed and got it ready for the first weekend of showings, that huge storm that hit Southern California this year happened to roll in on the first weekend of showings. So we tried to cancel everybody that was scheduled to come tour the property, but apparently all the agents and their buyers still wanted to come see it. So we had drummed up so much
Wow.
attention on it that they still wanted to come. So they came, it was storming, there was lightning, thunder, the whole nine. I ended up I drive a big giant Lexus sedan, definitely not an off-road vehicle. I drove it through the mud all the way to the property and then got stuck trying to come back home. So I ended up having to spend the night there and wait until the rain slowed down a little bit the following day. It was crazy. Um, what else? So now we got into escrow. We got multiple offers. Good thing, moving forward. But then started the roller coaster ride once we actually got into escrow. There was a whole list of FHA mandated repairs that included knocking down a literal house that was on the property. Um, and on two separate occasions, some random guys showed up wanting access to the property. I didn't know who they were. The lender didn't know who they were. The buyer's agent didn't know who they were. And we ended up, telling them that they couldn't access the property. This whole time, the sellers are actually in Washington. So the house is vacant and I'm just taking care of it, driving an hour back and forth. We discovered that there was a septic problem and the septic system was on its way out, needed to be replaced. On top of that, it was in a high fire zone, so insurance was challenging. One of the buyers had a sudden change of employment, so that almost cost them the loan. There were spottings of mountain lion on multiple occasions. We killed an aggressive rattlesnake that was on the porch. Um,
Oh
two
my
random
God.
dogs kept showing up to the property. The buyers got in a car accident. The sellers just all their traveling was with little kids, so it was like adding to their stress level. And then a couple of days before we were supposed to close, the loan got stuck in underwriting for a whole entire week. Nobody would tell us what was going on, and it ended up delaying the whole transaction. So we wrapped it up. We still ended up 33K above asking. The sellers were over the moon. But man, I learned so much from that one.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so what was like the first maybe like red flag or thing that happened that you're like, "Oh my gosh, why is this happening?" Or like, "What do I do here?"
Well, I think the very first thing was we were concerned about the repairs that were going to be requested by the FHA. We didn't want to take an FHA buyer in the first place if we could avoid it to try and save ourselves from having repairs. But the first red flag was we got multiple offers, but they were all FHA. We were like,
Wow.
man, what do we do?
Yes. Yeah. And I assume prior to this, maybe you've had some hiccups with transactions, but nothing like this before, right?
I've had one or two hiccups throughout any sale. There's always something that comes up and it's always minor and we get past it. But this was just one thing after another.
So the sellers were out of state. How were your interactions with them? Like keeping them calm and just updating them on what was happening?
Luckily, they're very technologically savvy. So we were doing Zooms, we were doing phone calls, we were doing voice text, regular text, just keeping them in the loop the whole time. I think that that was really key to them being happy throughout the sale, because anything that would come up, I always made sure to keep a calm demeanor when presenting to them what was happening, and that just kind of kept them in a cool mindset and helped us get through the whole thing.
Nice. How about the communication with the other agents?
I was so lucky with the other agent. He's one of those people that come to you and say, I've been in the business for 17 years, which usually is like, oh no,
Yeah.
red flag in itself, right? But luckily, he had awesome communication. So he had the same standard of communication that I have with my sellers with his buyers. So that also helped keep the buyers engaged and keep them excited throughout the sale.
Okay, perfect. So everyone knew what was happening
Yes,
at any
at
point.
all times.
Okay. Okay, good. Because even it's funny, that reel that I posted, some of the comments that were left were from agents saying that the other agent in the transaction just completely like fell off the face of the earth, didn't communicate with the clients, and now you have this whole crazy nightmare story. So I'm glad that that was not the case with you.
Yes, that would have complicated things so much more.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you initially accepted that offer, was it like a 30, 35, or 45-day escrow, or what did that look like initially?
It was a 21-day escrow,
Oh,
and it ended up being, I think, 62 days.
oh
I want to
wow.
say. Yeah, there were so many extensions. I think we ended up with 5 extensions when it all came to a close.
Okay. What do you think was the first like big delay?
The first big delay were the repairs. Going back to the first red flag too, we were initially counting on possible like minor repairs throughout the property, like painting paint chips, that kind of stuff, right? But knocking down a literal house and all of that took time. So that was the first big delay. And then we came across the septic problem, which was a delay in itself because they had to like dig throughout the whole property to find the septic lines and all of that. And then came the issues with the loan and losing the buyer's job. And it was so much.
So over 60 days when it initially
Yeah.
was 21.
Yeah.
Um, at the end, like let's say there's an agent that's watching this and might be going through a similar situation, what would be like two things that you would tell them so that they can, I don't know, remain in control, be cool? I mean, anything. What would you recommend?
My biggest recommendation would be to prepare yourself for your conversation before you talk to your seller. Make sure that your emotions are in control and that you're not showing any signs of panic, even if things are getting a little bit wonky on the sale. Just make sure that they know that you're guiding them through the sale the whole time so that you can continue building their trust and keeping their trust.
Now, before we wrap this up, I quickly want to shift to social media because I know that you made a video, a reel about this property, right? Which I think went viral or got a lot of activity. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I made a reel that went viral with the most views that I've ever had on any video. I think it's at 415,000 right now on
Wow.
Instagram. So that was pretty cool. But it was just a spur of the moment. Like I was at the gas station gassing up to go to the open house on one occasion, and I was like, I'm gonna start filming right now. And I just did little snippets here and there throughout the open house day, and it took off.
That's awesome. And have you had people reach out or inquire about that property or just like what has that been like?
There have been hundreds of people who have reached out inquiring about the home. Um, there have been several people that I've sent to pre-approval for a similar home. So now I'm searching for homeowners in the area who are hoping to sell their property so that I can match them up with all my new buyer pool.
That's awesome. And I bet you never even thought that that was going to happen when you pulled out your phone that day and you're like, I'm just going to record some clips here and there.
Yeah, exactly. The production value was way lower than what I usually do. It was just really raw. But for some reason, Instagram liked it and it took off.
Yeah. So did that motivate you to continue to do maybe content like that?
Yeah, I've been doing content kind of like that for several years. But yeah, the next property that I'm going to list is going to have something similar. I think what made that one unique was how far away from civilization it was, and that was highlighted in the video. But also, I ended up doing a series of reels for that property right before we went into escrow. A reel every day, sometimes 2 to 3 every day. We ended up doing 21 reels for that property. So we got tons of interest drummed up.
That's awesome. That's awesome that you almost created a strategy on social media for that specific property, because in itself it's already unique. It's out, like you said, in the middle of nowhere, no civilization nearby, and it had expired previously. So here you came in and you got the job done.
Exactly. Yeah. I knew that it needed a level of social media um, assistance in order to really get the audience excited and wanting to actually drive their way out there to even look at it.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, Anna, thank you so much for sharing your story. Hopefully, whoever's listening now can see, it's not just sunshine and rainbows in real estate, but here and there you come across these transactions. And the whole thing that you have to do is remain calm. And just like you said, keep your emotions out of it when you're communicating with your clients. And I like to say, look, at the end of the day, it's going to work out one way or another. And sometimes we lose sleep over something and we start freaking out. And then later on, we're like, I could have like not cried. I could have just like slept fine that night because it worked out anyway. So thank you so much, Anna, for sharing your story.
Thank you for having me, Loida.
All right.